we talk about Supreme Court judges, and you look at Thomas, and he gave the conservatives would want to give the impression like this is a model citizen. This is a guy who follows the law. He reads to the letter of the law. He is a traditionalist, and they have other terms that they use for those folks who actually interpret the Constitution as they claim it should, right? But here is Clarence Thomas being wined and dined by billionaires all over. I mean, they keep finding more and more. It keeps becoming more obscene. It seems to me like there must be some sort of a recourse, maybe impeachment, but of course we probably won't get there. But anybody who shows a blatant disregard, as Clarence Thomas is showing right now, does not belong to be on the bench. Does not belong on the bench. It is time for Clarence Thomas to leave. Check this out, then we'll take it on the other side.
The controversies continue to mount around Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. ProPublica has new reporting out today, giving the broadest look yet at how Thomas allegedly benefited from wealthy friends. Using information from more than 100 eyewitnesses, flight data, and other records, the newly compiled list includes 38 vacations, 26 private jet flights, an additional 8 helicopter flights, a dozen VIP tickets to sporting events, and stays at luxury resorts, all of which, according to this report, were provided by wealthy patrons who work in industries impacted by the court's decisions, although none had specific cases in front of the court. ProPublica notes that while some of the hospitality may not have required disclosure, ethics experts told them Thomas appears to have violated the law by failing to disclose flights, yacht cruises, and sports tickets. NBC News did reach out to Justice Thomas for comment this morning, but hasn't heard back. In the past, he said he was advised such gifts do not need to be disclosed. I want to bring in Eugene Daniels, Politico's White House correspondent and an MSNBC political contributor. Okay, so as you know, since ProPublica broke the story about Thomas's relationship with a billionaire benefactor, Harlan Crow, senators held a hearing. The justices themselves acknowledged they're discussing ethics rules, but nothing really. Do these new revelations, do you think, change anything in Washington? What's happening with this?
Yeah, I think it's hard to say this early on, but I think the idea that it wasn't just, right, like a friendship with one billionaire who took him on some fishing trips, and it is this kind of extensive relationships with a bunch of wealthy people and benefactors who funded these trips. I think that may have different weight, right? One of the things Republicans kept saying with the original reporting, the original great reporting, in addition to this one came out a couple of months ago, is that hey, he's allowed to have friends, and if they're rich and they pay for a trip, so what? The question of this is different. Congress isn't in session, so they're not here for us to badger them in the halls and ask them those questions. So they got really lucky. But I think when they come back, they're going to have to continue with this, because the question isn't, are they allowed to do the Supreme Court justices? The question is, why aren't these things being disclosed? Why isn't this information being shown to the American taxpayer who paid for, their salaries, and that they sit on this bench and they have all these billionaires and billionaires with access to some of the most powerful people in our country? And the question that ProPublica, I think, is still looking into after hearing some of the comments from them today is, what were the conversations like? What were they actually talking about? So there's a lot of questions that we don't know, but it does seem like Washington, D.C. at this point is both partly shrugging because it's more of the same, and also waiting and disgusted and saying, just like the American people are, is this the way that we want Supreme Court justices to act?
Yeah, I mean, we already know their approval ratings are low, but ProPublica's Brett Murphy was on MSNBC earlier today, and he talked about Justice Thomas's conduct compared to his colleagues. Take a listen.
As far as we know now, Justice Thomas is an extreme outlier in what he has received and what he has failed to disclose. We note in the piece that Justice Ginsburg and Breyer have also received trips and travel paid for by billionaires. However, the important distinction here is that those were disclosed. We know about them because they appear on those justices' financial disclosures. That's what the law requires, and that's what didn't happen in Justice Thomas's case.
Yeah, Eugene. So is part of the debate here whether this really is a SCOTUS ethics problem or just a Clarence Thomas problem?
Right, because the others don't seem to have these exact same issues. I mean, the interesting thing about Clarence Thomas is over the last year or so, really a year and a half, we've been talking about Jenny Thomas, his wife, and the text messages she sent to Mark Meadows about whether or not to certify the election, try to overturn the 2020 election. And so it put a different spotlight on him, right? And so then finding out, this person who Republicans have held up as kind of as good as it gets, as someone who follows the law and should be making laws in this country, that this is the kind of behavior that's happening behind closed doors.
Can anyone doubt that it is time? I mean, can anyone doubt that this guy has been on the take for so long, that he is really the one that judges us? How can we ever expect him to provide an unbiased opinion? It makes no sense. It's a Supreme Court seat that has been purchased by billionaires. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel. And number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.